Dr. Alan Carter rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the screen. The signal was still there, unchanged for the past 6 hours. He had been at the NASA Deep Space Monitoring Station since midnight when the first anomalous readings appeared. It was now morning in 2035, and what had started as a routine shift had become the most important day in human history. "Are you seeing this?" Samantha Mills asked, leaning over his shoulder. Her blonde hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, dark, circles under her eyes matching his own. She had been his assistant for 3 years, and he had never seen her this excited. "I'm seeing it," Alan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I still don't believe it." The signal was coming from just beyond Jupiter's orbit. It was structured, rhythmic, and impossible to explain as a natural phenomenon. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally found what it was looking for. They were not alone. "We need to call Director Peterson," Samantha said, already reaching for the phone. Within hours, the station was filled with government officials, military personnel, and scientists from every field. The signal had been confirmed by 3 other observatories around the world. There was no denying it anymore. "What are they saying?" asked General William Scott, his uniform crisp despite being summoned from bed in the middle of the night. Alan shook his head. "We don't know yet. The pattern is complex. It's clearly a message, but decoding an alien language isn't like translating French to English. We have no common reference point." For the next week, Alan and his team worked without rest. The world. Governments kept the discovery secret, but rumors spread quickly. The stock market fluctuated wildly as speculation ran rampant. Religious leaders called for calm while preparing their own interpretations of what this meant for humanity's place in the universe. Then the breakthrough came. Samantha burst into Alan's office, her tablet clutched tightly in her hand. "I've got it," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "The message contains mathematical sequences. They're using math as a universal language." Alan looked at her work. The aliens had started with simple concepts: prime numbers, the value of pi, basic geometric principles. From there, they had built up to more complex ideas, establishing a communication framework. "They're coming here," he said finally after reviewing the data. "They've sent coordinates for a meeting point near Earth, and they're already close." The United Nations Security Council called an emergency session. Lisa Thompson, the UN secretary, was chosen to lead Earth's diplomatic team. The world's militaries went on high alert, even while publicly denying any unusual activity. 17 days after the first signal, they arrived. The alien ship appeared suddenly in orbit around the moon, having traveled faster than any human monitoring systems could track. It was massive, almost a mile long, with a silvery hull that reflected the sunlight in ways that hurt the eyes to look at directly. The Voldurians, as they called themselves, requested a meeting in Geneva. They sent down a smaller craft that landed in a field specifically prepared for their arrival. The world watched through live broadcasts as the ship's doors opened. Ambassador Korath stepped out first. He looked almost human, but wrong in subtle ways. His skin had a silvery sheen, his eyes were entirely black, and he stood 7 feet tall with unnaturally long limbs. Behind him came 6 others, similar in appearance, but with slight variations in height and the patterns on their skin. "We bring greetings from the Voldurian Empire," Korath said through a device that translated his clicks and whistles into perfectly accented English. "We are pleased to make contact with your species." The first meetings went well. The Voldurians explained that they were representatives of a vast empire spanning hundreds of star systems. They offered friendship, trade, and technological exchange. All they asked in return were mining rights to several uninhabited planets and moons in the solar system. Most world leaders were excited about the possibilities. The Voldurians showed them medical technology that could cure cancer, energy systems that could end dependence on fossil fuels, and materials stronger than anything on Earth, but Alan Carter wasn't convinced. Something about the way the aliens presented their information bothered him. As one of the few scientists allowed to examine the alien transmissions directly, he noticed patterns in the data that the Voldurians hadn't explained. There's something. They're not telling us, he said to Samantha as they worked late in their lab, now relocated to a government facility near Geneva. These signal patterns here, they don't match their explanation of their communication systems. Samantha looked worried. What do you think it means? I don't know yet, Alan admitted. But I'm going to find out. He took his concerns to military intelligence and found an ally in Major Frank Hughes, a man with deep creases around his eyes and a perpetual frown. I don't trust them either, Hughes said bluntly during their first meeting. My job is to be paranoid, but this isn't paranoia. They're too perfect, too accommodating. Together they began a separate analysis of everything the Voldurians had shared. Most officials dismissed their concerns as fear of the unknown. Secretary Thompson herself told Alan to focus on the benefits of the alliance rather than looking for problems. 3 weeks after first contact, the Voldurians gifted Earth with what they called observation platforms, small satellites that would help monitor solar radiation and improve weather forecasting. Every major nation received one. They were placed in orbit with much fanfare. That night, Alan's computer program finally decoded the hidden pattern in the Voldurian transmissions. Oh no, he whispered as the results appeared on his screen. He immediately called Hughes. The observation platforms, Alan said as soon as Hughes answered. They're not what the Voldurians claimed. My analysis shows they're weapons platforms. Are you certain? Hughes asked, his voice tight. Absolutely, Alan replied. The technical specifications they provided contain hidden data. When decoded properly, it shows power systems far beyond what would be needed for observation equipment. They're positioning weapons around our planet. I'll get a team together, Hughes said. We need more proof before we take this to the Security Council. Can you meet me at the Pentagon in 3 hours? I'll be there, Alan promised. As he gathered his research, Samantha entered the lab with fresh coffee. She took one look at his face and set the cups down. What's wrong? Alan took a deep breath and showed her his findings. The Empire isn't here for friendship, Sam. I think they're preparing to strike. Her face paled as she reviewed his work. We need to warn everyone. That's exactly what I plan to do, Alan said, not knowing that they were already running out of time. 3 months had passed since the Voldurians arrived. The world had changed quickly. Alien technology appeared in major cities. Their medical devices were in hospitals. Their energy systems powered parts of New York, London, and Beijing. People grew used to seeing the tall, silver-skinned visitors walking among them. Alan Carter had not slept well in weeks. His warnings about the alien weapons platforms had reached some high-ranking officials, but most dismissed his concerns. The Voldurians had explanations for everything. The power systems he worried about, necessary for deep space observation. The unusual radiation patterns, simply how their technology worked. Only Frank Hughes and a small team believed him. They met in a secure room deep inside a military base outside Washington, D.C. We've gathered more evidence, Hughes said, spreading papers across the table. His uniform was wrinkled and stubble covered his normally clean-shaven face. The Voldurians have placed more than just those observation platforms in orbit. Our deep space radar detected smaller objects around Mars and Venus. Olivia Wright, a tech specialist with short red hair and quick eyes, pulled up images on her tablet. And I've been studying the medical scanners they gave to Georgetown Hospital. There's technology in there that has nothing to do with medicine. It's collecting data and sending it somewhere. Samantha Mills nodded. The same thing is happening at NASA. They've integrated their systems with ours, claiming it helps with deep space monitoring. But I've noticed unusual data transfers during off hours. Alan studied the information. They're preparing for something. But what? War, Hughes said simply. They're studying us, learning our weaknesses, positioning their assets. It's what I would do before an invasion. But why? Samantha asked. They're so advanced. They could have attacked immediately if that was their goal. Resources, maybe, Olivia suggested. Or they want Earth mostly intact. Whatever the reason, Alan said, we need to convince the UN Security Council before it's too late. That afternoon, they were scheduled to present their findings to a special committee. Secretary Thompson had finally agreed to hear them out, though her message made it clear she remained skeptical. They never made it to the meeting. At exactly 2:17 p.m. Eastern Time, every electronic device on Earth flickered. Phones, computers, televisions, all showed static for 3 seconds before returning to normal. Most people barely noticed. Alan was driving to the Pentagon with Hughes when it happened. Their car radio buzzed with static. "That's not good," Hughes said, reaching for his phone. Before he could dial, the sky lit up. Brilliant white streaks appeared above Washington, D.C., falling from the heavens. Similar lights appeared over every major city around the world. The Voldurian attack had begun. The first strikes hit military installations. The Pentagon erupted in flame moments after the initial electronic pulse. Missiles launched in response died in their silos, their guidance systems fried by alien countermeasures. "Get to the bunker," Hughes yelled, swerving the car off the main road. "We prepared for this." In the weeks since discovering the threat, Hughes had established several hidden facilities. One was an old Cold War bunker, restored in secret and stocked with supplies. It had been built with technology from the 1960s, simple, hardened electronics that might survive the alien attack. They abandoned the car when traffic stopped completely. People ran through the streets in panic as more energy beams struck the city. Buildings crumbled, the air filled with dust and screams. Hughes led Alan through back streets and underground passages. They emerged near a nondescript warehouse. Inside, a group of soldiers guarded an elevator that took them deep underground. Samantha was already there, her face streaked with tears. "They hit NASA first," she said. "Most of the staff didn't make it out." Olivia arrived an hour later with burns on her arms. "The hospital is gone," she reported grimly. "They targeted it right after the military bases." News trickled in through emergency channels. Geneva had been destroyed during ongoing negotiations, killing Secretary Thompson and most world leaders. The alien weapons emitted energy pulses that disabled all electronic systems before the bombardment began. "They hit every major city at once," Hughes said, studying the reports. "New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo, all suffered direct strikes. Military bases worldwide were primary targets, followed by government centers and infrastructure." Alan couldn't believe the scale of the attack. How did they coordinate this? The timing was perfect. "The technology they gave us," Olivia said bitterly. "The medical scanners, the energy systems, the communication upgrades, they were all weapons, waiting to be activated. Over the next few days, they established contact with other survivors. The picture became clear. Earth was under full invasion. Voldurian ships landed in the ruins of major cities. The aliens moved with purpose, setting up bases and deploying smaller craft to hunt down military remnants. A week after the initial attack, they received a transmission from the Voldurian High Command. It played on every working screen and radio on Earth. "People of Earth," Ambassador Korath's voice was cold and formal. "Your planet is now under the control of the Voldurian Empire. Your military forces have been neutralized. Your governments no longer exist. Resistance is both futile and unnecessary. Accept your place as a resource world in our empire, and you may survive." The message continued with instructions. Civilians were to report to collection centers for processing and assignment. Resources would be cataloged and harvested. Earth's water, minerals, and biological diversity were now property of the Empire. In the bunker, Hughes switched off the transmission. "Not going to happen," he said firmly. "What can we possibly do?" Samantha asked. "You've seen their weapons. They destroyed our militaries in hours." Alan looked around at the small group of survivors. "We fight back. They may have better technology, but they don't know humans very well if they think we'll just surrender." "With what?" Olivia asked. "They've disabled most of our advanced tech." Hughes smiled grimly. "Then we use the old stuff. Rifles still work. Radios with vacuum tubes. Combustion engines. Nothing fancy that their pulse weapons can disable. And we need to learn about them. Alan added. Every enemy has weaknesses. We need to find theirs. That means capturing one, Hughes said, and getting samples of their technology that we can study safely. They spent the night planning. The bunker had supplies for months, but they couldn't stay hidden forever. Somewhere above them, the human race was facing extinction or enslavement. The Voldurian Empire had struck first, expecting quick submission. They were about to learn that humans never surrender so easily. 6 months after the attack, Earth was a different planet. Cities lay in ruins, forests burned, oceans darkened with ash. The Voldurians established extraction colonies, massive structures that dug deep into the ground for minerals and metals. Humans who surrendered worked as slaves, moving like ghosts through the rubble of their former world. But not everyone surrendered. The bunker that Alan Carter and Frank Hughes had escaped to became known as Haven. Over time, more survivors found their way there. What started as a small group grew to over 300 people. Soldiers, scientists, doctors, engineers, all working together, all committed to one goal, taking back their planet. Similar groups formed around the world. They communicated using old radio technology, simple signals that the Voldurians often missed because they seemed too primitive to matter. Samantha Mills developed this communication network. She worked with old ham radio operators who taught her how to bounce signals off the ionosphere. The aliens control the satellites, she explained, but they can't control the atmosphere, at least not completely. Alan led a team of scientists studying captured Voldurian technology. They worked in a shielded lab deep within Haven, carefully taking apart alien devices to understand how they worked. Their tech is advanced but not magic, Alan told Hughes during one of their planning meetings. They use principles we understand, just applied in ways we haven't mastered yet. Hughes nodded. Under his leadership, small teams ventured out to harass Voldurian outposts. They set traps, destroyed supplies, and occasionally managed to kill an alien soldier. The victories were small, but each one raised morale. We need something bigger, Hughes said. These hit-and-run attacks are like mosquito bites to them. We need to find a real weakness. Their chance came 3 weeks later. A resistance team from what used to be Colorado Springs brought in a prisoner, a wounded Voldurian soldier captured during an ambush. It was the first time they had taken one alive. The alien was kept sedated while Alan and Dr. Susan Baker, a linguist who had joined Haven 2 months earlier, prepared to interrogate it. They had learned bits of the Voldurian language from monitored communications, enough to ask basic questions. When the alien woke, it stared at them with those unsettling black eyes. It showed no fear, only contempt. Why did your people attack us? Alan asked in the alien's clicking language. We offered friendship. The Voldurian made a sound that their translator interpreted as laughter. Your species was deemed preemptively hostile, it replied. Standard protocol for potentially dangerous races. Potentially dangerous? Susan asked. We had barely left, our own moon. We posed no threat to your empire. Not yet, the alien said. But your fiction revealed your intentions. This confused them at first. After more questions, they understood. The Voldurians had intercepted Earth's broadcasts for decades before making contact. They had seen human movies and television shows, many featuring humans fighting alien invaders. Your stories showed us what you would do once you gained the ability to travel between stars, the Voldurian explained. The Empire's policy is clear. Eliminate potential threats before they develop interstellar capability. Alan felt cold anger rising inside him. You destroyed our world because of movies? Fiction? Fiction reveals truth, the alien replied. Your species imagines conflict because you crave it. The Empire has encountered 17 other races like yours. All were eliminated or subjugated. This is the natural order. The interrogation continued for days. They learned about the Voldurian Empire's structure, their technology, and their plans for Earth. The alien seemed to think humans were already defeated, so it saw no harm in sharing information. One day, while testing different environmental conditions to better understand Voldurian biology, they made a discovery. When exposed to certain sound frequencies, the alien showed signs of discomfort. Olivia Wright, who had been monitoring the tests, noticed it first. "Look at its reaction when we play these low-frequency sounds," she said, pointing to readings of the alien's vital signs. Heart rate increases. Brain activity spikes in patterns associated with pain in humans. They experimented further and found a specific range of frequencies that severely disrupted Voldurian neural patterns. It wasn't lethal, but it incapacitated them temporarily. "This could be the weapon we've been looking for," Hughes said when they demonstrated their findings. "But how do we use it?" Samantha asked. "We can't exactly play loud music at every Voldurian on the planet." Alan had been quiet, thinking. "Maybe we don't need to target every individual," he said slowly. "The Voldurians rely on networked systems. Their ships, their weapons, their communications. Everything connects to central command nodes. So if we could introduce this frequency into their network," Hughes began. "We might disrupt their entire operation," Alan finished. They worked for weeks on the plan. Olivia led efforts to create devices that could generate the specific frequencies. Alan and his team developed a way to introduce the signal into the Voldurian network. Hughes trained teams to plant the devices at key locations. Their first test came at a small Voldurian outpost that processed human captives. A team of 6 resistance fighters planted the device near the outpost's communication array. When activated, every Voldurian in the area collapsed, overwhelmed by the sound humans couldn't even hear. The team freed 87 prisoners before destroying the outpost. It was their first major victory. Word spread through the resistance network. Similar attacks happened across what remained of North America, then in Europe and Asia. The Voldurians responded by increasing security and changing some of their communication protocols. But the resistance had found their weakness. During this time, they also made contact with a naval officer named Paul Jackson. He had been at sea when the attack happened, aboard a submarine that survived because it was deep underwater during the initial electronic pulse. Now he led a group operating from hidden coastal bases. "We need to coordinate our efforts," Jackson told them during a secure radio call. "Random attacks won't win this war," Alan agreed. "We've learned a lot about them, but we're still just causing minor damage. We need something bigger." "What we need," Hughes said, his voice grim but determined, "is to hit them where it really hurts. Their command center." Satellite imagery smuggled from a captured Voldurian facility showed their main base, a massive ship in orbit around Earth, directing all operations on the ground. "If we could get to that ship," Alan said, "we might be able to do more than just disrupt their local operations. We could affect their entire presence on Earth." "It's impossible," Samantha objected. "How would we even get up there?" Alan looked at the images of the Voldurian vessel hovering above their broken world. "We'll find a way," he said. "They thought we were dangerous because of our stories. Let's show them how dangerous we really are when we're fighting for our survival." 1 year had passed since the Voldurians attacked Earth. The seasons changed, but the smoke never fully cleared from the sky. In Haven, the resistance grew stronger. What began as a small group fighting for survival had become an organized force, with a plan. Alan Carter stood in the center of what they called the War Room, a large area deep underground filled with maps, diagrams, and salvaged equipment. Around him gathered the leaders of the resistance: Frank Hughes, Samantha Mills, Olivia Wright, and the newest addition, Commander Paul Jackson. "Project Prometheus is ready," Alan announced. "We can move forward with the final phase." Project Prometheus was their name for the plan to infiltrate the Voldurian command ship. For months they had gathered intelligence, tested equipment, and trained teams. Now they were ready to act. "Show us what you've got," Hughes said, his face more lined than a year ago, but his eyes still sharp with determination. Alan nodded too. Olivia, who activated a projector. Images appeared on the wall, showing detailed schematics of alien technology. 3 weeks ago, one of our teams in Arizona captured an intact Voldurian shuttle, Alan explained. It was damaged during a storm and forced to land. The crew was killed in the crash, but the ship remained largely functional. Samantha stepped forward. We've been studying it day and night. Their technology is complex, but we've figured out how to operate the basic systems. Most importantly, we can fly it. That's our ticket up to the command ship, Hughes said with a grim smile. Paul Jackson, who had arrived at Haven just a month ago, looked skeptical. Even if we can fly their shuttle, how do we get aboard their main vessel? They'll shoot us down the moment they realize the shuttle isn't responding to proper codes. That's where this comes in, Alan said, pointing to another image. 2 days ago, a team led by Hughes captured a high-ranking Voldurian officer near what used to be Chicago. Unlike the regular soldiers, officers carried direct access codes to the main ship. Getting those codes wasn't easy, Hughes added, touching a fresh scar on his face. We lost good people in that operation. Olivia brought up new images on the screen. The officer also carried this. She pointed to what looked like a small silver disc. It's their version of an identification card. Between this and the codes, we can approach the command ship without raising immediate alarms. Once we're aboard, Alan continued, we'll need to reach their central network hub. That's where we can deploy our weapon. The weapon was not a bomb or a missile. It was a specially designed virus. After months of studying Voldurian technology, Alan and Olivia had created a program that could infiltrate their systems and spread throughout their network. The virus won't destroy their technology, Olivia explained. That would be noticed and stopped too quickly. Instead, it will open a channel, allowing us to broadcast directly into their command systems. Broadcast what? Jackson asked. Alan looked at each person in the room. A message, but not just any message. We're going to send them everything. Everything? Samantha asked. Human history, art, music, literature, science, our entire cultural record, Alan said. But most importantly, our stories of resistance against impossible odds. The very stories they use to justify attacking us. I don't understand, Jackson admitted. How does sending them our history help us fight them? Because it comes with a warning, Hughes said, understanding Alan's plan. We'll show them what happens when you corner humans. We don't give up. We adapt. We survive. And eventually, we win. Psychological warfare, Jackson nodded slowly. But will it work? These aren't humans. They think differently. They understand threat assessment, Alan replied. That's why they attacked us in the first place. Our message will include data on every human conflict, every resistance movement, every time a smaller force defeated a larger one through determination and ingenuity. Their own logic will force them to recalculate the cost of occupying Earth. The plan was set. A team of 12 would fly the captured shuttle to the Voldurian command ship. Hughes would lead the mission, with Olivia to handle the technical aspects of deploying the virus. The others were their best fighters, people who had proven themselves in ground operations against the aliens. Alan and Samantha would remain at Haven to coordinate from the ground and maintain communication with other resistance cells worldwide. They would all strike simultaneously at Voldurian targets across the planet, creating a distraction for the main mission. If this works, Paul Jackson said, it could change everything. If it fails, we keep fighting, Hughes replied, firmly, one battle at a time, one day at a time, until there's not a single one of them left on our planet. The next week was spent in intense preparation. The team trained in the captured shuttle, learning to operate alien controls that were never designed for human hands. Olivia worked with Alan to finalize the virus, ensuring it would spread quickly through the Voldurian network before it could be detected and stopped. Samantha established contact with resistance groups around the world, coordinating the timing of their attacks. Every working radio was put to use, with messages passed in code from one group to another. The night before the mission, Alan found Hughes alone in the shuttle bay, checking equipment one last time. We've come a long way since that first signal, Alan said, looking at the alien craft that would carry his friends into orbit. Hughes nodded. Remember when our biggest worry was whether the UN would believe us about the weapons platforms? Keep thinking about what the Voldurian prisoner told us, Alan said. They attacked because our stories showed them we would fight back against alien invaders. Self-fulfilling prophecy, Hughes replied with a grim laugh. They created the very resistance they feared. "Do you think this will work?" Alan asked quietly. Hughes was silent for a moment. "It has to. We're not going to defeat them with guns and bombs. We need to make them decide that Earth isn't worth the cost." The next morning, the team made final preparations. The shuttle had been modified with equipment to generate the neural disrupting frequencies they had discovered. This would give them an advantage if they encountered Voldurian soldiers aboard the command ship. As the team boarded the shuttle, Hughes turned to Alan one last time. "Keep the lights on. We'll be back." "Good hunting," Alan replied, gripping his friend's arm. The ancient bay doors, designed decades ago for vehicles that never reached space, groaned open above them. The Voldurian shuttle rose silently into the air, its alien engines glowing with blue energy. It hovered for a moment, then shot upward into the cloudy sky, quickly disappearing from sight. Alan watched until the last trace of the shuttle vanished. Then he turned and headed back to the war room. Phase 1 of Project Prometheus was complete. Now began the most dangerous part, the infiltration of the Voldurian command ship and the delivery of humanity's message. On screens around the room, reports began coming in from around the world. Resistance cells were launching their coordinated attacks. The final battle for Earth had begun. The Voldurian command ship hung in orbit like a metal moon. It was massive, nearly a mile long, with spines and towers jutting from its silver hull. From this vessel, the aliens controlled their entire invasion force on Earth. Inside Haven, Alan, Carter, and Samantha Mills watched a small dot on their radar screen. The captured shuttle carrying Hughes and his team approached the command ship. Everyone in the room held their breath. "They're hailing the shuttle," Samantha reported, listening through headphones. "Standard identification request." Alan nodded. "This is it." The captured officers' access codes had been programmed into the shuttle's communication system. Now they would learn if they worked. If they failed, the shuttle would be destroyed instantly. Seconds passed. The dot on the screen continued its approach to the larger ship. Then Samantha smiled. "They're clearing the shuttle to dock. The codes worked." A cheer went up from the people gathered in the room. It was the first victory of the day, but many challenges remained. "Send the signal," Alan ordered. Across the world, resistance fighters launched their attacks on Voldurian outposts. Reports flowed in from all continents. In what was once Tokyo, fighters destroyed a communication hub. Near the ruins of London, explosives damaged a processing center. In the Amazon, a supply convoy was ambushed. These attacks served a purpose beyond damage. They flooded the Voldurian communication network with emergency signals, creating noise that would help hide the shuttle's true mission. High above Earth, the shuttle docked with the command ship. The team of 12 humans prepared to leave the relative safety of their captured vessel. Hughes checked his weapon one last time, then nodded to the others. "Remember the plan," he said. "We move quickly and quietly. Use the sound devices only if we have no choice. Our goal is the central network hub." They opened the shuttle door and moved into the alien ship. The corridors were large and curved, designed for beings taller than humans. The lighting had a blue tint that made human skin look gray. They moved carefully, following the path they had memorized from stolen schematics. The first group of Voldurians they encountered was a maintenance crew. Before the aliens could react, Olivia activated a small device that emitted the neural disrupting frequency they had discovered. The Voldurians collapsed, their nervous systems overloaded by the sound humans couldn't hear. "Drag them out of sight," Hughes ordered, "and move faster. They'll notice these missing soon." The team progressed deeper into the ship. Twice more they encountered small groups of aliens and used the sound devices to incapacitate them, but their luck couldn't last forever. As they approached, a major junction and alarm sounded throughout the ship. Flashing lights turned the blue corridors red. They had been discovered. "Run!" Hughes shouted. The team broke into a sprint, abandoning stealth for speed. Ahead of them lay the central network hub, their primary target. Behind them came the sounds of many Voldurians in pursuit. At a large door, 2 alien guards opened fire. Energy weapons flashed, hitting one team member in the chest. He fell without a sound. Another human returned fire with a conventional rifle, the loud bang echoing strangely in the alien corridor. One guard went down, but more appeared. Hughes activated his sound device at maximum power. The approaching aliens stumbled and fell, but the device not designed for such intensity burned out after a few seconds. "Get that door open," he ordered Olivia, who was already working on the alien control panel. Her fingers flew over the strange symbols, applying what they had learned from months of studying Voldurian technology. The door slid open, revealing a vast chamber filled with glowing equipment. This was the central network hub, the brain of the entire Voldurian operation on Earth. "Inside now!" Hughes shouted. The team rushed through the door as more aliens approached from other corridors. Olivia sealed the door behind them, but it wouldn't hold for long. "How much time do you need?" Hughes asked her as she ran to a central console. 3 minutes to upload the virus, maybe 5 for it to spread through their system, she replied, already connecting their specially designed device to the alien network. "You've got 2 minutes, Hughes said grimly. "The rest of you, defensive positions. We hold this room at all costs." The remaining team members took cover behind alien equipment, weapons ready. Outside, they could hear the Voldurians preparing to break through the door. Back in Haven, Alan and Samantha monitored the situation anxiously. Their connection to the team was limited, but they could tell from the burst transmissions that the mission had reached a critical stage. "They've made it to the hub," Samantha reported. "But they're under attack." Alan paced nervously. Everything depended on the next few minutes. The virus had to be uploaded, had to spread through the Voldurian network. Without it, all their sacrifices would be in vain. On the command ship, the door to the network hub began to glow red as the Voldurians cut through it. Olivia worked frantically at the console, her face illuminated by the alien screen. "Virus uploaded," she announced. "Now it needs to propagate." Hughes looked at the door. "I don't think we have time." The door burst open. Voldurian soldiers rushed in, energy weapons firing. 3 more humans fell. The others returned fire, creating a deafening roar in the enclosed space. Olivia stayed at the console, protected by the others. 60%, she called out. 70. Keep them back a little longer. Hughes fired his weapon until it was empty, then grabbed another from a fallen comrade. The remaining team members fought with desperate courage, knowing the fate of their species hung in the balance. 90%, Olivia shouted above the noise. "Almost there." A Voldurian shot hit the console next to her, showering her with sparks. She cried out in pain but kept working. "It's done," she finally yelled. 100%. The virus is in their system. At that moment, the screens throughout the room flickered. The shooting stopped as both humans and Voldurians turned to look. Images began flashing across every display, faster than the eye could follow. Human history streamed into the Voldurian network. Art, music, literature, science, the full record of human achievement and struggle. And with it went the warning, encoded in terms the aliens would understand. "You have awakened something ancient and unforgiving. We don't surrender. We don't forget. Every species you've conquered will learn what happens when you strike Earth first." In Haven, Alan and Samantha watched as their own screens showed the virus spreading throughout the Voldurian network, reaching every ship, every outpost, every alien device on Earth. The message was delivered. Then something unexpected happened. The Voldurian ships in orbit began to move. At first, Alan thought they were repositioning for a final attack, but their trajectory wasn't toward Earth. They were leaving. Reports came in from around the world. Voldurian forces were retreating, abandoning outposts, boarding transport ships, pulling back from human populations. "I don't understand," Samantha said. "Why are they running?" Alan studied the data flowing across his screen. The virus had done more than deliver a message. It had accessed the Voldurian Command AI, the system that made strategic decisions for the Empire. The AI had analyzed human history, assessed human determination, and calculated the long-term cost of occupying Earth. The result was clear. Eventually, humans would win, It might take years, decades, even centuries, but the data showed that humans never stopped fighting, never accepted defeat. The cost in Voldurian lives and resources would be too great. 3 days later, the last alien ship left Earth's atmosphere. The command ship transmitted a final message before departing. Your world is deemed not worth the cost. The Empire withdraws. In the ruins of cities around the world, humans emerged from hiding, looking up at the sky with disbelief and hope. The invaders who had seemed unstoppable were gone, driven away not by superior firepower but by the unbreakable human spirit. Alan stood outside the entrance to Haven, breathing fresh air for the first time in days. The sky was clearing as the dust of war began to settle. "Do you think they'll come back?" Samantha asked, standing beside him. Alan shook his head. "No. They'll tell others about us, about what happened when they struck first. Our warning will spread throughout their empire to every world they've conquered." He looked at the devastated landscape, then at the people emerging from Haven. There was hard work ahead, years of rebuilding. But they were alive. And they were free. "The Empire struck first," he said quietly. "But Earth had the last word.